Welcome back to American Agenda. Mandate madness. New York City and Mayor de Blasio are taking aim at the unvaccinated.
First in the nation measure, our health commissioner will announce a vaccine mandate for private sector employers across the board. All private sector employers in New York City will be covered by this vaccine mandate as of December 27th. We're going to have some other measures as well to really focus on maximizing vaccination quickly so we can get ahead of Omicron and all the other challenges we're facing right now.
Joining us now to discuss the city's vaccine mandate for private sector employees are Florida businessman, lawyer, and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell, and host of Money Talk with Melanie and Project 21 member Melanie Collette. Thank you both for joining us. You know, Bob and I have been going back and forth today about this mandate. Ford, as a businessman, how can he even do this legally? How can he do this?
Plus, he's a lawyer. Ford's a lawyer too.
Well, I'm not sure that he can actually do this legally, but let's just also talk about this from a scientific data standpoint. What is 100% vaccination rate in the private sector going to accomplish that 70% vaccination rate in New York City already does from a disease that less than 1% of Americans die from? This is another case where Democrats think the government knows best. The Democratic base is not happy with a lot of politicians along the country, and this is more of a political charade, much like TSA security is at the airport.
Melanie, this strikes me as something a politician does before he leaves office. He's literally imposing this. It'll take effect 5 days before he leaves office. So he wins if it gets through and works. He wins if it doesn't work, because he'll say, well, I wasn't there to enforce it. I mean, this reeks of political. And here's my concern. I don't want to make this just about New York, because there's nothing to keep this from being the blueprint for mayors across the country.
Well, indeed. And, the way in which New York goes, New York City goes, the state goes, and New Jersey tends to go, and I'm here in New Jersey. But when I read this today, the whole thing was just completely maddening. Where do you get to the nerve to say that every single person should get this vaccine that we don't even know the long-term side effects of as of yet, and it is not preventing infection? That's the biggest problem that I have with that. Yes, it may keep you from dying, possibly keep you from dying, but it's not 100% guarantee. So if a person wants to take that personal risk, that is their business. If a person, for whatever medical reasons, doesn't need to take this vaccine, that is their medical business, not the state, not the government, not Mayor de Blasio's. And he's got a lot of darn nerve imposing this on his people. It's infuriating.
And taking it a step further, saying, not just one shot, you have to prove that you've had 2 vaccine shots. And then children, as young as 5 years old, have to prove that they've had 1 shot. I mean, it really just, crosses the line, especially if you're here in New York City and you see the problems that businesses are having getting back on track to begin with.
Indeed.
Yeah, look, I agree 100%. Go ahead, Melanie, sorry.
No. I was going to say, in New York City, and they're wondering why people won't go back to work,
right?
Why the unemployment rate is the way it is, because people are not going to go to work over having to inject their bodies with something that they absolutely do not want.
Yeah.
And no amount of money or jobs is going to change someone's mind when you don't want a medicine injected into your body.
And Ford, where did you go to law school?
I went to the University of Virginia, Wahoo Wah, but I will say something to Melanie, and that is exactly right. This is not a silver bullet.
Exactly.
I'm someone who was in the hospital with COVID. I'm someone who's had the boosters. I've had 3 shots at least. You can still get it. You can still transmit it, and the shot wears off. This is, again, a feel-good measure to promote Comrade de Blasio, potentially the governor of New York, or some other political office. And Democrats across the country are doing this. They're putting out policies to virtue signal, not to protect the safety and well-being of their own constituents.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make the point. I'm sure one of the things that you've studied along the way is the objection that I have with this, including of the Biden administration, is it's coming out of the executive branch without Congress having passed it, without the legislature passing it. When America can decide what everybody in his or her city has to do, that's a little frightening to me. Now, if the legislature came back, maybe that's different. And I think that's probably the trouble that the Biden mandates are going to run into.
Right. I mean, you have multiple courts across the country right now putting the kibosh, you could say, on it for now. But yet you have the Biden administration fighting back, standing ground, saying that they are going to put these into place. So it's just interesting to see the mayor of New York City trying to do this.
Yeah,
as well.
there's several circuit courts that put the kibosh. That was the technical term they used. Right, the legal term. All right, stand by.